Hey guys, Hercules, let's do a quick rundown of episode 8 of The Last of Us.
Alright guys, so, my god, last night's episode was a doozy. I mean, I knew it would be terrifying, but that was like some next level shit right there. If I had to summarize episode 8, word would probably be desperate, right? Like, obviously, that's where we open. Ellie is desperate to save Joel. I mean, whatever she needs to do, like, she's a kid, right? But we see her growing up, just trying her best. She's going out, she's trying to hunt. She doesn't really know how that looks. And then, of course, she comes across two strange men in the woods, which is never a good precursor for what's to come. So we learn that one of these guys is David, right? This wicked antagonist from the game, probably the worst villain, easily worse than the Clickers, Fedra, anybody like that in the first game, because his motives are so twisted and cruel, and they did a great job in this episode just setting him up where he seemed creepy out the gates, right? We saw him earlier already at that point with his cult, his congregation, so to speak, but definitely wasn't that. And that was freaky, right? And Ellie, she jumps right on that. She figures out these guys are up to no good, but she needs this medicine for Joel. So we see her at that desperation. She reveals too much, simply in the fact that she has revealed that they exist, right? So she gets back, heals Joel. That's fantastic. But then again, she's doing whatever she can to lead them away. Arms Joel, and when he comes to and just goes ape on those guys, oh my God. That was brutal, but it's hard to not root for him, right? But meanwhile, we see Ellie get abducted by these madmen. I mean, these same people that we learn are eating their own dead. I mean, just completely twisted and brutal and disgusting. And just shows you kind of the depths of torment that humanity is reaching in some places, right? Just total extinction actions out of the people. And you may have noticed the other character in this episode was James, played by Troy Baker. This character is really interesting, right? Because he not only was a great kind of way to introduce the voice actor of Joel from the video game into this cinematic world, but we also get this other character that shows kind of the waning sway that David has over his cult, right? We start to see that a revolt might not be too far down the line, because James seems to go along with David, but feels pretty uneasy about the kind of depths that this community is starting to go to. So we kind of see out of James too a bit more kind of basic human instinct. He just wants revenge. He's thinking of getting rid of Ellie. Definitely wants to get rid of Joel. But nevertheless, he doesn't really know what to do but kind of follow his master, right? He's sort of like a beaten dog in a way. So then we see Ellie caged up back in the town, right? And this just bloody horrific scene with David. I mean, David is a monster, right? And just so disturbing. And this line that he mentions about having a heart of violence and calls that out in Ellie is just really interesting, especially just taking a pause and thinking about biblical David, right? Who was not a cannibalistic pedophile, by the way, but David in the Bible is a flawed but good man, right? A man after God's own heart is how the Bible refers to David. And here we almost see like the anti-David, right? Has the same name, but instead of being a man after God's own heart, he's almost a man after the devil's own heart, right? this violent heart that he talks about. And then he goes on and starts being creepy with his weird pedophile fantasy. And my God, is it badass. Ellie breaks his finger, screams at him, right? And then that just leads into the tussle a few minutes later, and she bites him, screams that she's infected, and then uses that moment to oust James, he's done for, and get away into that final scene when the steakhouse is burning down, and she has to fight and eventually butcher David, right? And this total sicko gets exactly what was coming to him, very Shakespearean poetic justice that should happen to him. And all of that, I felt like, just desperation throughout. But also as a viewer, I felt desperate. I played the game, I knew what was happening. And, hats off to Bella Ramsey. My God, she did such a good job in this episode. But it was horrifying, right? I mean, I found myself closing my eyes, looking away. It was too much at points, which I felt like, that's what that scene is trying to do. It's trying to draw you in and help you to understand and empathize and want to defend Ellie as a parent, right? She is a child. You want to defend her and protect her. I felt that way in the game during that scene. They did a fantastic job provoking that kind of emotion out of me, and I think most viewers last night as well, where you just want to rush to her aid. You want Joel to get there in time, but he doesn't. But thank God they reunite moments later, and we see Joel embrace her. For the first time in 20 years, he utters that phrase, baby girl, right? And just that parental relief, but concern. He doesn't know what's happened to this girl who is now his daughter. I mean, he loves her in the same way. And that transition, that metamorphosis is complete. That bond is fused between father and daughter. And we just kind of see that in that moment, and it's beautiful in the most tragic possible way, right? Because of what she had to go through, and because Joel couldn't be there to protect her. And I'll say, my God, Lord save me, I should never be in a situation even remotely related to that. But there are moments in parenthood where you feel that, where you're like, I want to do whatever I can to protect my kid, but sometimes something happens and you're like, I wasn't there, right? And you just feel that loss, like they get made fun of at school, or a bully, or they get hurt when you're not around or something, and all you feel is this guilt because you're charged with protecting them, with doing anything for them, and you feel like you failed them. And so then you're just grasping at the air, trying to just find any way that your love can shore up those holes that have been punctured in their life or their psyche or whatever it is. And so, again, just thinking about what that would be like in an end of world scenario is visceral, right? It's horrifying. And God, I hope it never happens. But from a storytelling standpoint, a home run. This was the best, worst thing I have ever seen, and I have no desire to see it again. But in terms of pushing that story forward and helping us buy in to this parent and child relationship, it was a home run in that regard. And on that, I cannot wait to see how that momentum carries us forward into next week's finale and seeing season 1 wrap up. All right, guys, thanks for running down episode 8 with me. Leave in the comments the part from last night's episode that stuck with you the most. I'd love to kind of hear what really stuck out to you guys. And make sure that you tune in next week while we wrap up the season finale
of season 1 of The Last of Us. But until then, high five and subscribe.